let's just rip the Band-Aid right off. Because what just dropped at Summer Game Fest completely obliterates everything you thought you knew about the Heroes in a Half Shell. Seriously, this is a massive, high-stakes reveal that literally redefines the entire franchise. So strap in for this explainer, because the details hiding in today's announcements are absolutely wild, and there's a huge payoff at the end of this you're gonna want to hear. So here's the brutal question we're tackling today. What actually happens to the very last surviving Ninja Turtle, right? We are so far beyond eating pizza in the sewers at this point. The source material confirms we are following one lone surviving turtle, and his brothers, they're gone. It's an incredibly dark, high-stakes narrative that completely flips the script on what this universe even is. We are talking about a desperate mission for vengeance, literally a blood-soaked quest for retribution. If you came into this expecting those kid-friendly cartoon turtles from Saturday mornings, you gotta recalibrate right now. This is a massive tonal shift. For all the longtime fans who grew up and, matured right alongside this franchise, this is exactly the emotional validation you've been waiting for. And the sheer scale of what they're building, it's staggering. Because Variety just confirmed this is not some small indie spin-off. And it's definitely not a retro pixel art brawler. This is officially billed as a, quote, AAA action-adventure game. That means massive budgets, bleeding-edge graphics, the whole shebang. The publishers are basically betting the entire house on this gritty, dark vision. Now, just to ground the stakes real quick, if you haven't read the phenomenal source material, The Last Ronin is based on this massively popular comic run. It tracks that final, solitary turtle wielding the iconic weapons of his fallen brothers on this seemingly impossible quest through a bleak, dystopian future. The lore is already god tier, and now it's becoming a blockbuster interactive experience. And the urgency on this is very real. This was officially revealed today at Summer Game Fest. The trailer dropped and absolutely sent shockwaves through the entire industry. But look, having an amazing IP and a flashy trailer is one thing, right? To actually pull off a AAA game with this kind of weight, you need a development studio with a very specific and honestly, very rare set of skills. Which brings us to the absolute most crucial question of this whole explainer. Who on earth is insane enough to build this? To genuinely capture that lightning-fast ninja combat, the brutal difficulty, and give it that cinematic AAA polish. You can't just hand the keys to anyone. You need a studio that is already legendary for their action combat. Boom. Platinum Games, the completely unlikely heroes of this project. If you follow gaming at all, that name alone just sold you, didn't it? According to GamesIndustry.biz, the absolute madmen behind action masterpieces like Bayonetta are at the helm. Platinum Games taking on the lethal, fluid combat of The Last Ronin is literally a match made in action-adventure heaven. But how did this dream pairing even happen in the first place? Well, the secret sauce here is organic passion. Dan Prigg, the head of the newly retooled Paramount Games studio, pointed out that Platinum Games were already, in his words, huge fans. So this wasn't some cold corporate mandate where a random studio got saddled with a licensed IP. Platinum actually raised their hands because they genuinely loved the comics. And the way this builds behind the scenes is crazy. Prigg paints this picture of absolute frantic excitement when the executives realized Platinum wanted in. He literally says, "We kind of got wind of it." This was one of those where it's like, we have to make this. You can literally feel the desperation from Paramount to lock the deal down. Prigg is basically saying, guys, we have to do this game. How could we not do this game? And it all culminates in this massive realization. How has this never happened before yet? Sitting in that room, listening to Platinum pitch their ideas, it became blindingly obvious to everyone that a dark, AAA Ninja Turtles action game was just an untouched goldmine. The excitement was off the charts, but there was actually a huge corporate hurdle that almost killed this entire thing before it even started. To understand how we got here, you kind of have to look at the massive difference between the pre-merger Paramount and the post-merger Paramount's game studio. Prigg openly admits that under the old regime, this game simply would not have happened. The old studio was doing smaller licensed stuff like SpongeBob's stuff and Roblox. They just weren't equipped to handle a massive AAA collaboration with a powerhouse like Platinum Games. The real game changer was the August 2025 Skydance merger. When Paramount and Skydance locked that in, Paramount Game Studio got a complete top-to-bottom retooling. Prigg, who used to head up Skydance Interactive, steps in as executive VP. Suddenly, they actually have the infrastructure and the vision to look at Platinum's pitch, push it up the chain, and finally say, yes, this makes sense for us. Okay, so the ink is dry, the game is cooking with a legendary studio, and the world finally knows. So what's next? How are they building the hype train? Because Paramount isn't just dropping a single trailer and ghosting us. They are aggressively expanding this universe right now to keep you totally hooked. First off, they're striking while the iron is piping hot with physical drops. Alongside the game reveal, Paramount announced a massive collaboration with the insanely popular digital artist Boss Logic to drop some limited edition merchandise. And we aren't talking about your standard, generic mall t-shirts here. We're looking at exclusive apparel and collectible poster art infused with Boss Logic's signature gritty style. It perfectly matches the whole vibe of The Last Ronin. It's honestly a brilliant way to capture that dark aesthetic and get it into the real world right away. But honestly, the physical merch is just an appetizer for the lore drop that's coming. So we had the explosive Summer Game Fest reveal on June 5th, but you literally only have to wait until July 9th for the next major piece of the puzzle, which is a brand new comic called The Last Ronin Training Day. Paramount and the comic creators are moving in absolute lockstep here to keep this story front and center before the game eventually drops. And this isn't just some throwaway promo material. Check out the pedigree on this. It's a 10-page preview one-shot written by none other than TMNT co-creator Kevin Eastman and Tom Waltz. And the art is being handled by the Escorza brothers and Ben Bishop. They're bringing out the absolute heavy hitters of the comic world to bridge the gap for us. For the hardcore lore junkies out there, this next detail is huge. This new prequel is set exactly between issues number 3 and number 4 of the original comic run. So it's a highly specific, totally canonical insertion into the timeline that fills a very particular gap in the overarching story. So what actually happens in it? The comic zooms in on Michelangelo over a single, intense 24-hour period as he trains Casey Marie Jones. Yes, the daughter of April O'Neil and Casey Jones. It's a super concentrated narrative designed to ramp up the stakes right before we finally get our hands on the actual game controller. All right, so we've covered the brutal tone, the legendary devs taking the wheel, the corporate merger that greenlit the whole thing, and the massive expanded universe rolling out as we speak. Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the hard facts I teased at the very beginning of this explainer. Where and when can you actually play this thing? Well, Paramount has officially confirmed the platforms it's coming to console and PC. They're casting a nice, wide net for this AAA title. So whether you're rocking a high-end PC rig or you're a dedicated console player, you're going to get to experience Platinum Games' incredibly dark vision of this future. But the ultimate release date? Still totally shrouded in shadow. As of right now, there is no official release date set. Paramount is definitely holding their cards close to their chest on this one, letting Platinum Games cook this thing until it is absolutely flawless. All the pieces are on the board, but the exact moment they strike is still a complete mystery. So the studio is absolutely legendary. The budget is massive, and the story is a vengeance-fueled bloodbath. The only question left is, are you ready for the darkest TMNT experience in gaming history?